The first thing I remember is heat. Not the normal California in July kind of heat. The kind that sits in your throat and makes your lungs feel like they're working overtime. We were in a damage control drill, full gear, full tempo. The kind of training where nobody wants to be the reason the team slows down. Smoke machine going, alarms blaring, instructors yelling like they were paid per decibel. I had my mask on, gloves taped, helmet strapped down, and I was moving on muscle memory because my brain was doing that thing where it tries to float away from the moment. I'd been running on fumes for weeks. Not because I was partying, not because I was reckless, because I was doing what you do in the Navy when you're trying to stay on track, standing watch, knocking out quals, catching up on admin, trying to be the officer who doesn't make other people's lives harder. I'd also been sleeping like a phone on low power mode. 5 hours if I was lucky. Sometimes 4. Sometimes a nap in a chair if the schedule got ugly. I kept telling myself it was temporary. Just get through this qualification cycle. Just get through this training block. The headaches started as a whatever I'm dehydrated problem. Then they turned into a why is the room tilting when I stand up problem. I'd get these weird moments where my vision would blur for a second, like someone smudged a camera lens. I didn't tell anyone, because the Navy has taught me 2 things: your body will betray you and paperwork will finish the job. So I did what a lot of people do. I pushed. I drank more water. I took ibuprofen. I smiled at my division, like everything was fine. That morning, right before the drill, Lexi had looked at me in the passageway and said, "You good, ma'am? HAM to Lexitron. Corpsman. The person you want near you in a bad day." "I'm fine," I said automatically, like a robot programmed to lie. Lexi didn't buy it. She never did. She just nodded once like she was filing it away. Then the drill kicked off and we moved. Fire in compartment, move, move, move. I ran with the team, low stance, controlling my breathing, following the hose line. The air was thick. Even with the mask, it felt like the oxygen wasn't doing its job. My heart started hammering harder than it should have. I tried to slow my breathing. I tried to focus on the next step, the next command, the next turn. Then the dizziness hit, like somebody flipped a switch. 1 second I was upright, tracking the hose and the shouted directions, and the next second, the deck seemed to slide sideways under my boots. My stomach dropped. My vision tightened like I was looking through a tunnel. I remember thinking very calmly, "Wow, this is not great timing." I tried to take one more step because that's what my brain always chooses. One more step, one more minute, one more anything. My legs didn't agree. Everything went light, and then it went far away. I didn't hit the deck the way you see in movies, dramatic and slow. It was ugly, fast, like someone unplugged me. I felt my shoulder smack something hard. I heard my own breath turn into this strangled sound inside the mask. Then hands were on me. "Taryn, ma'am, can you hear me?" The mask came off. Air hit my face, too cold compared to the heat inside the drill space. Someone rolled me onto my side. Someone lifted my legs. I blinked and saw Lexi's face above mine, sharp and focused, like she'd flipped into a different gear. "Stay with me," she said. "Eyes on me. Don't try to stand." I wanted to say I wasn't trying to be dramatic. I wanted to say I could get up. I wanted to say I'm fine. My mouth didn't cooperate. Lexi looked past me. "Call it. Now." A voice yelled for medical. The alarms kept screaming in the background like they hadn't noticed I was currently having the worst day of my month. Lexi pressed her fingers against my wrist. Any chest pain, I shook my head. Or I tried to. It felt like my head weighed 50 pounds. Any trouble breathing now that the mask is off? I'm... My throat was dry, dizzy. Her eyes flicked over me like a checklist. "How long have you been feeling off?" I tried to lie again. It didn't come out right. "A while." Lexi's jaw tightened. Not angry at me, more like annoyed that my body had been sending warnings and I'd been ignoring them like junk mail. "Okay," she said. "We're not playing tough today. We're playing smart." They got me onto a stretcher faster than I expected. The instructor's voice faded as we moved out. The air got cleaner. The light got brighter. My heartbeat was still racing, but at least I wasn't surrounded by smoke and noise. Someone in the chain of command showed up on the edge of my vision, asking Lexi questions. Lexi answered in clipped, calm sentences. It was weird hearing people talk about me like I was a problem to solve. The ride to the ER was a blur. The medic kept asking me my name, my age, where I was. I answered because I'm stubborn, and I didn't want anyone thinking I was confused. Any medical history, he asked. No, I said. Then I added, because my brain finally decided honesty was the move, headaches. He raised his eyebrows but didn't lecture me. He just wrote it down. At the hospital, the world turned white and loud in a different way. Bright lights, curtains, beeping, shoes squeaking on polished floors. A nurse leaned over me. We're going to get your vitals. Can you tell me your full name, Taryn Walsh? Date of birth, I told her. She typed fast. Any allergies, no. They started an IV cold fluid. That little sting, I stared at the ceiling and tried to breathe like this was normal. A doctor came in mid-40s, tired eyes, calm voice. Lieutenant, I'm Dr. Patel. You collapsed during training, correct? Yes. We're going to run some tests, he said. Blood work. EKG. We'll see what's going on. Have you been having dizziness, headaches? Vision changes? Yes, I admitted, because there was no point pretending now. He nodded like he'd heard this story before. Do you have family we can notify? My stomach tightened. You can call my parents. They're listed as my emergency contact. The nurse pulled up the file. Okay, we'll call them now. I watched her step out, phone in hand, like it was the most normal thing in the world, like someone was about to do the bare minimum thing parents do. Lexi stood near the foot of the bed, arms crossed, watching my face. It's fine, I told her. The words tasted stupid. They'll come. Lexi didn't say yes. She just said, we'll see. A few minutes passed, then more. A nurse came back in and didn't look at me right away. My chest got tight. They answered. The nurse hesitated. We left a message. We'll try again. That was the first punch. The second punch came when my phone lit up. Not my mom, not my dad. Paige, my older sister, 3 years older, and somehow still acting like the family's spokesperson, like she had a badge that said, Chief of everyone else's business. I stared at the screen, surprised she was calling at all. I answered. Paige. Her voice came through sharp, already irritated. Why is some corpseman calling Mom like you're dying? Lexi's head snapped toward me. I collapsed, I said, keeping my voice steady. I'm in the ER. Paige let out a sigh like I'd told her the printer ran out of ink. Okay, so you fainted. That happens. Don't turn it into a whole thing. It's not a whole thing, I said. It's a hospital. They're calling my emergency contact. Well, tell them to stop, she said immediately. Mom's with Dad. We're in the middle of stuff. She doesn't need that kind of stress. I blinked. I'm the one in the ER. And you're awake, Paige said, like that settled everything. So you're fine, Lexi mouthed. Are you kidding me? I turned my face slightly away from Lexi because I didn't want her to see my expression. I didn't want anyone to see how hard that landed. Paige? I said slower, they should come. Paige laughed once. Not funny, just dismissive. Come for what? So you can have an audience. Taryn, don't do this. Don't make everything dramatic. My grip tightened around the phone. I didn't ask for an audience. I asked for my parents. Paige's tone cooled even more. I'm telling you right now, don't drag them into this. Handle it like an adult. You're a Navy officer, right? Act like it. Then she hung up, just like that. Click, gone. For a second, the room felt too quiet, even with the machines beeping. Lexi walked closer. That was your sister? I nodded because my throat suddenly didn't work. Lexi stared at me for a long beat, then said, Okay, that tells me everything I need to know. She reached for the call button. I'm going to talk to the nurse. And I'm not going anywhere, I swallowed, forcing my voice back into place. They'll come, I said, mostly to convince myself. Lexi didn't argue. She just looked at me like she was already making a plan. And while the nurse came back in to adjust my IV and Dr. Patel started talking about ordering imaging, Because of my symptoms, my phone buzzed again, this time, not with a call but a text. From Paige. Stop making this a thing. My thumb hovered over the screen, then dropped. I didn't reply. I couldn't even decide what emotion to pick first. Because in that moment, lying there in a hospital bed with an IV in my arm, I realized something that should have been obvious years ago. My sister didn't just think I was dramatic. She thought my pain was inconvenient. The nurse returned with a clipboard. "We're going to try your parents again," she said. I watched her walk out, phone in hand, and this time I didn't feel hopeful. I felt alert, because Paige had made it clear my parents weren't busy. They were being managed. And somewhere out there, my sister was already deciding what version of this story the rest of the family was going to hear. My fingers went cold around the phone, and I turned it face down like that would make Paige's text stop existing. Lexi was already talking to the nurse at the doorway, her voice low but firm. She wasn't rude. She was just not letting anyone slide past the point. I watched her for a second and felt something I didn't like feeling in public. Relief. Because if Lexi hadn't been standing there, I would have done what I always did with my family. I would have made excuses for them. I would have softened the truth until it was harmless enough to swallow. The nurse came back in with that careful expression people get when they're trying to be professional and human at the same time. "I tried both numbers again," she said. No answer. We left another message. I stared at her like she'd just told me the sky was green. "They're in San Diego," I said. "It's not far." She nodded, but her eyes didn't match my optimism. Sometimes people don't pick up unknown numbers. "We'll keep trying." Lexi glanced at the badge on the nurse's chest. "Can you make sure the caller ID shows UCLA Medical Center, not just a blocked line?" The nurse blinked, then nodded. "Yes. I can note that." Lexi turned back to me. "You okay?" I almost laughed. It would have come out ugly. "I'm fine," I said, because apparently I was committed to that lie no matter what. Dr. Patel stepped in with a tablet scrolling through my chart like my life was a to-do list. "We're going to run a CT first," he said. "Given the training environment and your symptoms, we want to rule out anything acute." He looked up. "Have you had any recent head injury?" "No." "Any history of fainting?" "No." "Any chance you're pregnant?" "No." He nodded once, then said, "And you mentioned headaches and vision changes." "Yes." "Okay." He didn't sound alarmed. He sounded serious. That was worse. He left, and the nurse started adjusting my IV and wrapping a blood pressure cuff around my arm. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Paige. "Don't let them drag Mom and Dad into this. They're already stressed." Lexi's eyes flicked to the screen. "She's still texting you." I didn't answer right away. My throat felt tight, like my body was trying to keep my feelings from coming out and getting me written up. "She thinks I'm making it up," I said. Lexi shook her head slowly. "No. She thinks she can control it. That's different." It hit me how easily Lexi said that, like she'd seen families like mine before. Like this was a pattern, not a personal tragedy. And in a weird way, that made it easier to breathe. A hospital tech wheeled me down the hallway for the CT. The ceiling lights passed over me in a steady rhythm, and I tried to focus on something practical, like the fact that my boots were still on because nobody had had time to take them off. In the CT room, they transferred me onto the table. The tech explained what was happening, asked me to stay still, told me it would be quick. I stared at the machine and thought, if my parents walk in right now, I'll pretend none of this hurt. That's how trained I was. Back in the ER bay, Lexi had my wallet and my phone charger on the counter, like she'd been living my life for the past hour. "You were still on duty roster today," she said casual. "I let the LPO know you're at the hospital." He said, "Don't worry about anything." I nodded. "Thanks." She leaned against the counter. "You want me to call your parents again?" I should have said no. I should have handled it myself. That was the pride talking, the same pride that kept me from going to medical when the headaches started. But I heard myself say, "Can you try?" Lexi picked up her phone and stepped just outside the curtain. I could hear her voice calm, clear, unmistakably. "I'm calling from a hospital. She tried my mom first, then my dad, then again. Then she came back in and didn't sit down. No answer, she said. Straight to voicemail. I nodded like that was normal. It wasn't. Another buzz. This time it was my mom. For half a second, my heart actually lifted. I grabbed the phone so fast, my IV line tugged and I winced. I answered, "Mom." Her voice came through loud and irritated like I'd called her during her favorite show. "Taryn, what is going on?" she demanded. "Paige says you're causing a scene." I stared at the wall across from me, because if I looked at Lexi, I was going to lose it. I collapsed, I said. "In training. I'm in the ER." A pause. Then my mom exhaled sharply. "Okay, and they checked you, right?" "Yes. They're running tests. So you're awake," she said. Like that was the finish line. "Then you're fine." I closed my eyes for a second. "They called you," I said. "The hospital called you." "Well, we didn't recognize the number," she snapped. "And Paige said you were talking like it was something huge." "It is huge to me," I said, and my voice cracked on the last word, which made me hate myself immediately. "Taryn," my mom said, and now her tone shifted into that familiar one, sweet, on the surface, sharp underneath. "You need to stop. We're in the middle of something. Your father is busy. Paige has plans. Don't ruin the day with this." "Mom," I said, and the word came out small. "I'm in a hospital bed. Stop being dramatic," she said, like she and Paige had rehearsed it together. "You're in the Navy. You're trained for stress. Handle it." I didn't even know what to say to that. The absurdity of it was almost funny. "Almost." "Are you coming?" I asked, forcing the question out. Silence. Then my mom said, "We can't. Not right now." "Why not?" She hesitated for half a breath, and in that half breath, I heard the truth hiding behind her teeth. "Because Paige needs us," she said finally. Like that explained everything. "Paige needs you." I repeated. "Yes," my mom said. "She's got enough on her plate. This weekend is important." Important. Weekend. My brain caught on the word like a hook. "You're on a trip," I said. "That's not the point," she snapped. "The point is, you need to stop. You're going to stress your grandfather if you keep acting like this. We'll call you later." Then she hung up. "No, are you okay? No, do you need anything? No, we love you." Just a clean cut, like a call with customer service. I sat there staring at the dark screen. Lexi didn't say anything for a moment. She just pulled the chair closer and sat down like she was planting a flag. "That went great," she said finally, dry as sand. A laugh escaped me, short, bitter, and completely involuntary. Lexi leaned in slightly. "Where are they?" I swallowed. "She said they're on a trip. She didn't say where." Lexi's eyes narrowed. "Your sister's trip," I nodded. Lexi shook her head once like she was trying not to curse in a hospital. "Okay, so your emergency contact is refusing to respond to an emergency." I flinched at the word emergency because that made it sound real in a way I wasn't ready to hold. Dr. Patel came back in and tapped on the tablet. "Your CT doesn't show anything acute," he said. "That shows us there's no bleeding or obvious emergency issue right now, which is good. But given your symptom history, I want neurology involved. We may need an MRI to get a clearer picture." My stomach dropped. MRI was not a casual word. MRI. I meant the doctors were looking for something, not just checking a box. "Am I going back to work?" I asked, because that was the Navy part of my brain doing its job. Dr. Patel looked at me like I'd asked if I could run a marathon with a broken ankle. "Not tonight," he said. "You're staying for observation. We'll monitor you get labs back and coordinate next steps." He glanced at Lexi. "Do you have someone to take care of her if needed?" Lexi didn't even hesitate. "I'm here." The doctor nodded and left again. I sat in silence until my phone buzzed one more time. This time it wasn't a call. It was a notification. A new story from Paige. I told myself I wasn't going to open it. I told myself it didn't matter. I told myself I had bigger problems than my sister's social media addiction. My thumb opened it anyway. Bright lights, a hotel lobby. My mom's laugh in the background. My dad's voice saying something about dinner reservations. Paige's face centered in the frame, glossy and perfect, like she'd never heard the word hospital in her life. Text across the screen said, "Finally, a weekend with no drama." Lexi watched my face change and quietly reached over, taking the phone from my hand without asking. She watched the story. Her jaw tightened. Then she set my phone down on the tray table like it was evidence. "Yeah," Lexi said, voice flat. "That's not an accident." My chest felt hollow, like someone had scooped something out and left me walking around with empty space. I didn't cry, not because I was strong, because I was too stunned to do anything that would count as a reaction. Lexi leaned back in her chair. "You want to update your emergency contact?" I stared at the ceiling for a long moment. The answer was sitting right there, obvious and painful. But saying it out loud felt like admitting a defeat I'd been pretending wasn't real. I opened my mouth anyway. "Not yet," I said, and my voice surprised me with how steady it sounded. "Let's get the tests first." Lexi nodded like she understood the calculation I was making, and while the nurse came back in to draw more blood, and the monitors kept their steady beeping. My phone kept lighting up with Paige's world, laughing filtered perfect, while mine was being measured in vitals and unanswered calls. I kept my eyes on the monitor, like the numbers could explain why my own mother sounded more annoyed than worried. Lexi asked the nurse for a blanket, and when she draped it over me, it felt like the first normal thing that had happened all day. My phone sat on the tray table face down, like a bad decision I didn't want to make again. A new text buzzed anyway. "Paige, see, they said you're fine. Stop stressing Mom out." I didn't even touch it. Lexi saw the screen light up and sighed. "Your sister has a real talent for being loud while being useless." That got a quick snort out of me. It wasn't a laugh. It was more like my body trying to prove it still worked. A resident came in to check my reflexes. He shined a light in my eyes, asked me to follow his finger. Asked me if the headaches were worse in the morning, if the dizziness came with nausea if I'd lost weight. I wanted to answer with one sentence, "I'm exhausted." That's the whole story, but my body had already made it clear it didn't care about my explanation. After he left, Lexi leaned her chair closer. "Okay," she said quietly. "No more pretending this is just a fluke. You've been having symptoms for weeks." I stared at the ceiling. I didn't want to slow down. "You didn't want to be seen as weak," she corrected. I didn't argue because she was right. When you're an officer, everything feels like it gets recorded somewhere. If you show up to medical too often, someone has an opinion. If you miss a training event, someone remembers. If you're not careful, your reputation gets built for you. And I'd worked too hard to let that happen. I'd worked too hard since I was a kid. I didn't say that out loud. I just swallowed and said, "I'll deal with it." Lexi shook her head. "You're dealing with it now. That's the point." My phone buzzed again. This time it was a call. "Paige." Lexi pointed at it like it was a snake. "Do not pick that up." I should have listened. But a part of me still wanted to believe I could talk to her like a normal sister, like she'd hear the fear under my calm voice and flip into caring mode. So I hit accept. Paige's face filled the screen immediately. She was in what looked like a hotel room hair, perfect makeup, done like she was about to walk into a photo shoot. Behind her, I could hear muffled voices and clinking dishes. Finally, she said, "Why are you ignoring me?" I stared at her. "I'm in the ER." "Yeah," she said, rolling her eyes. "You've said that like 20 times. My jaw tightened. "They're keeping me overnight. They're ordering more tests." Paige leaned closer to her camera and lowered her voice like she was sharing a secret. "Okay, listen, you need to be smart about this." I blinked. "Smart, yes," she said like she was explaining something to a child. "Don't say weird stuff. Don't exaggerate. Don't start talking about how you collapsed like it's some big incident." I stared at her. It was a big incident. I passed out during training. She lifted a hand. "Taryn, people faint. You know what happens when you make it sound dramatic? The command starts asking questions. People start thinking you can't handle pressure. I'm literally trying to protect you." Lexi, sitting beside the bed, mouthed, "Protect you," with an expression that could have melted steel. Paige kept going. "Mom is upset because she thinks you're spiraling." "Mom is upset," I repeated slowly, "because I'm in the hospital." Paige sighed like she was tired of teaching me basic life skills. No. Mom is upset because you're turning it into a thing. We're on this trip, okay? We're trying to have one weekend that isn't about you. I felt my face go hot. This isn't about me. This is about my health. It's always about your health. Paige shot back. Or your job. Or your stress. You always find a way to make everyone stop and focus on you. I stared at her stunned. That was rich coming from the woman who could turn a wrong Starbucks order into a personal injustice. Paige! I said, keeping my voice low. Did you tell Mom not to come? Her eyes narrowed. I told her you were awake and fine. That's not what I asked. Paige smiled tight and sharp. I told her not to overreact. Because she always overreacts when you start doing your little crisis thing. My stomach twisted. It wasn't even the words. It was how comfortable she was saying them. Like she'd been doing this my whole life. Lexi leaned closer to me, quiet but solid. I could show Paige the IV in my arm, the monitor, the hospital bracelet. I could show her the truth with my face. It wouldn't matter. Paige didn't want facts. She wanted control. Okay, I said, surprising myself with how flat my voice sounded. So you're managing them. Paige's expression hardened. I'm managing you. That was the first time she said it out loud. You're welcome, she added sarcastic. If you go around acting like you're dying, you're going to mess up everything. And don't even think about calling Grandpa. He doesn't need your drama. My heart kicked hard. Why are you bringing up Grandpa? Paige's eyes flicked away for half a second. Just half. But it was enough. Because he's old, she said quickly. And you stress him out, so don't. Lexi's eyebrows shot up like she'd just heard a confession. I kept my face calm. Paige, I'm not trying to stress anyone out. I'm trying to not pass out again. Then handle it, Paige snapped. Privately. She leaned back, her tone turning sweet in that fake way she had when she wanted to sound reasonable. Look, you're fine. You're awake. You're safe. Let the doctors do whatever they do and stop calling people like the world is ending. I looked at her and realized something I didn't want to realize. If I disappeared tomorrow, Paige would write a beautiful post about how hard it was for her. Then she'd get brunch. Are you going to tell Dad? I asked. Paige smirked. Dad already knows what kind of mood you're in. What does that mean? It means, she said, slow and cutting, Dad's not going to drop everything because you had a fainting spell. He has a life. We all have a life. My mouth went dry. And I don't. Paige glanced past her phone like someone called her name. She returned her gaze to me and lowered her voice again. I'm warning you. If you start making noise about this, you're going to regret it. People don't look at officers the same when they think they're unstable. There it was again. That word, unstable. She threw it out like a casual insult, but it landed like a threat. Lexi's hand tightened around the edge of the bed like she was physically holding herself back from jumping through the screen. I kept my voice calm. Don't use that word. Paige shrugged. If it fits. My pulse spiked. I could feel it in my neck. Paige, I said, I'm done with this conversation. Her smile returned bright and fake. Good, that's what I wanted. Stop calling, stop texting, stop making it a thing. And for the love of God, don't involve Grandpa. She ended the call before I could respond. The screen went black, and for a second, all I saw was my own reflection, pale, tired, IV, taped to my arm, eyes that looked like they belonged to someone older. Lexi exhaled slowly. Okay, she said. Now we're not playing dumb. She just threatened you. She didn't threaten me, I said automatically. Lexi gave me a look. Taryn. She said the word unstable twice and told you not to call your grandfather. That's not sisterly concern. That's control. I swallowed. My chest felt tight, but my face stayed weirdly calm. Like my brain had flipped into operational mode. Can you do me a favor? I asked. Lexi leaned in. Name it. Screenshot that I said, nodding at my phone. The call log, the texts, everything. Lexi didn't smile, but there was something satisfied in her eyes. Already thought of that. She opened my phone, scrolled, started taking screenshots, saving them to a folder, emailing them to herself with my permission, like she was building a case file. It should have felt extreme. Instead, it felt like the first intelligent thing anyone in my family had ever done for me. A nurse came in to draw more blood, and Lexi stepped aside. The nurse glanced between us, probably picking up the tension. "Any family coming in?" she asked casually, while tying the tourniquet. I hesitated, then said the truth in the simplest way. "No." The nurse didn't react. She just nodded like she'd heard that answer 100 times and kept working. After she left, Lexi sat back down. "You want to update your emergency contact now?" I stared at the blank wall for a long moment, thinking about my mom saying, "Paige needs us," thinking about Paige, saying she manages me, thinking about the way my sister talked about my health, like it was a public relations problem. My thumb hovered over my phone. I didn't make the change yet, but I opened the settings and pulled up the emergency contact screen. Just to look. Just to remind myself I had a choice. Lexi watched me quiet and steady. Then my phone buzzed again, another message from Paige sliding onto the screen like she owned space in my life. "Paige, don't embarrass the family." I stared at it, and something inside me went still. Not sad, not angry, just clear. Because if my sister's first instinct was to protect the family's image instead of my life, that meant the problem wasn't my weakness. The problem was their priorities. I tapped the screen once and put my phone on Do Not Disturb like I was shutting a door in my sister's face without giving her the satisfaction of hearing it slam. Lexi watched me do it and nodded. "Good choice." I didn't feel strong. I felt tired. The kind of tired that makes your bones feel heavy. The nurse had finally convinced me to take off my boots, and my feet throbbed like the show had been holding up my entire life. Not just my body. Dr. Patel came back with a new face behind him, older, calm, and carrying the kind of quiet authority that made everyone stand up straighter without being told. "Lieutenant Walsh," she said, "I'm Dr. Chen, neurology." Lexi's posture changed immediately. I'd seen Lexi handle fires, broken fingers, panic attacks, and one guy who thought he could walk off a heat injury. She didn't scare easily, but the word neurology made the room feel smaller. Dr. Chen pulled up a chair and sat so she was at my eye level. "I reviewed your symptoms and your initial imaging," she said. "Your CT is reassuring in the sense that it doesn't show bleeding or an acute emergency, but your symptom pattern is concerning enough that I want an MRI." I nodded slowly. "Okay. You've been having headaches," she said. "Dizziness, vision changes, and now a collapse during a high-stress training event." "Yes." "Have you had any episodes where you felt like you might pass out before I hesitated, then decided to stop performing?" "A couple times. Standing up too fast. On watch. I thought it was lack of sleep." Dr. Chen didn't judge me. She just noted it. "Any nausea, vomiting, seizure-like symptoms?" "No." "Any weakness in your arms or legs?" "No." Lexi's gaze stayed locked on Dr. Chen, like she was trying to memorize every word. Dr. Chen continued, "The MRI helps us see details a CT won't. We want to rule out structural causes, things that can explain these symptoms. Structural causes." I stared at the ceiling. My brain tried to treat it like an academic term, something that belonged in a textbook, not in my skull. They moved me to MRIU later that afternoon. By then, the adrenaline had drained out of me, leaving nothing but nausea and a dull ache behind my eyes. A tech explained the process, asked me to remove anything metal, and offered ear protection. I slid into the machine and tried to breathe evenly, but my mind kept replaying Paige's voice. Unstable. "Don't embarrass the family. Don't call Grandpa." I stared into the blank space above my face and made myself focus on the only thing that mattered. Stay still, get the scan, get answers. Back in the ER bay, the waiting part was worse than the scan. You can handle a procedure. You can't control silence. Lexi stepped out to talk to someone from the command for a minute, short and professional. When she came back, she held a small paper cup of water and a packet of crackers. "Eat," she ordered. "I'm not hungry." "Not optional," she said. "Your body is not a robot. Stop treating it like one." I forced a cracker down. It tasted like cardboard and humility. The hospital financial counselor showed up not long after because hospitals in America, love nothing more than timing paperwork right when you feel like you're going to throw up. She introduced herself, sat down, and pulled out a folder. We're going to talk about insurance authorization and the estimate, she said gently. Lexi's head snapped up. Estimate, the counselor nodded. Because this is specialized care and we're coordinating additional imaging and potential intervention, the system generates an estimated cost of services. Your coverage will handle most of it, but authorization takes time, and we want you to understand the process. I heard the words, but the only thing my brain grabbed was estimate. She slid a page toward me. The number was big. Not in a, I can ignore it way. In a why does my life have a price tag way. My chest tightened. I have TRICARE, I said. Yes, she replied. That's why we're coordinating authorization. This estimate is not a final bill. It's a preliminary projection before the insurance process completes. It scares everybody. I'm telling you that now so you don't spiral. Lexi muttered. Too late. I stared at the paper. The money wasn't the problem by itself. It was what it represented: time approval specialists, and the fact that I couldn't just walk out and pretend this was a bad day. The counselor leaned forward. If authorization takes longer, we can discuss assistance programs, payment plans, resources. You're not alone in this. I almost laughed again. Not alone. Sure, just me, Lexi, and a folder of terrifying numbers. Then my phone buzzed even on Do Not Disturb, because Paige was the type of person who would call enough times to break through. Lexi glanced at the screen. Don't. It was a voicemail notification. Paige had left one. I didn't play it. I didn't need to. I could hear it in my head already. Dr. Chen returned later, with a thick file and the same calm expression. That was the part that made my stomach drop. Calm doctors are good. Calm doctors with files are information. She pulled the curtain closed a little more, giving us privacy. Lexi shifted closer without a word. Dr. Chen placed a printout on the tray table. We have your MRI results. I stared at the grayscale image like it was an alien language. There's a small mass, she said, pointing to a spot I would have missed. Based on its appearance, it is most consistent with a meningioma. In many cases, these are benign. Benign should have made me feel better. It didn't. Not yet. The concern is location, she continued. It's pressing near structures that can explain your symptoms: headache, dizziness, visual disturbance. That's likely why you collapsed today. I swallowed. So what happens now? We refer you to a specialist team, she said. You'll have a consultation quickly. Depending on how your symptoms progress, the recommendation may be surgical removal or another form of intervention. Not tonight, not this second, but soon enough that we don't want you ignoring this. Soon enough. My hands went cold. Is it dangerous? Dr. Chen was careful. Your situation is treatable. The mass is small. The fact that you're young and otherwise healthy helps, but untreated, it can grow. It can lead to worsening symptoms. In rare cases, serious complications. Lexi's voice was steady. What does soon mean? Dr. Chen answered without drama. Within the next few weeks, we want you evaluated and a plan set. If symptoms worsen: severe headache, vomiting, weakness, seizure, you come back immediately. I nodded, trying to hold on to something solid. A plan. Weeks. Treatable. Those were words I could work with. Then Dr. Chen said, because your mass is near critical structures, the team may recommend advanced imaging and specialized surgical planning. That's why authorization and coordination matter. The counselor's estimate flashed in my mind again, like a warning sign. I thought of my parents on a trip. I thought of Paige calling this drama. I thought of the way she'd used the word unstable like she was labeling a file folder. As Dr. Chen finished explaining next steps and left, I sat there with my mouth slightly open like I'd forgotten how to close it. Lexi stayed quiet until the curtain stopped moving. Then she said, okay, you heard the doctor. This is real. I know, I whispered. Lexi leaned forward, elbows on her knees. Now you need support. Real support. My phone buzzed again. A text this time from Paige. Paige. Don't start acting crazy. Don't go telling people you have a brain tumor. You're going to mess up your career. My fingers tightened into the blanket. Lexi's eyes widened. She said what I didn't hand over my phone. I just read it once more slower, like I was making sure I wasn't imagining it. Acting crazy. Mess up your career. It wasn't concern. It was a warning. A threat dressed up as advice. I felt something shift in my chest. Less sadness now, more sharp focus. Like I'd finally stopped wishing for my family to be different and started seeing them as they were. Lexi's voice got quieter. Save that. That's not normal. I know, I said, and the words came out steadier than I expected. Because right then, lying in a hospital bed with an MRI result on the table, and my sister trying to control my mouth like she owned it, I made a choice I should have made a long time ago. I wasn't going to let Paige narrate my life anymore. I unlocked my phone and opened my notes app, not to write a dramatic speech, not to vent, but to start a simple list. Who called, who didn't, what was said, what was threatened, what the doctors documented. Lexi watched the screen and nodded once, like she recognized the move. Receipts, she said. I didn't answer. I just kept typing because my hands needed something to do, while my brain tried to catch up with the fact that I'd walked into training that morning expecting a normal day, and now I was leaving it with a diagnosis and a family that sounded more worried about optics than my brain. I stared at the list on my phone until the words stopped looking like sentences and started looking like proof. Lexi went to the cafeteria and came back with the most depressing hospital meal imaginable, something beige in a plastic container, and a coffee that tasted like regret. She handed it to me anyway, like it was medicine. Eat, she said. I picked at it. My stomach was too tight to accept anything more than a few bites. The MRI printout sat on the tray table like a quiet accusation. My brain kept replaying Dr. Chen's calm voice. Treatable, small, soon. And then Paige's text on top of it, like frosting on a bad cake. Don't tell people. You'll mess up your career. That one sentence made me realize Paige wasn't just being selfish. She was being strategic. She was already thinking about how my diagnosis could affect her, how my medical situation could become a storyline she had to manage, like I was a reputation problem. The nurse came in to check my vitals and asked, "Any family coming by?" I almost answered automatically. Yes, they're on the way, because that's what I was trained to say in my own head. Instead, I said no. The nurse's face didn't change. She just nodded like that was common and adjusted the cuff around my arm. That hurt in a different way. Not surprise. Familiarity. After she left, my phone buzzed again. This time it was my dad. My heart jerked up like a dog hearing its name. I hated that about myself. I hated that even after my mom hung up on me. Even after Paige threatened me, my body still wanted to believe my dad would show up and act like a father. I answered, "Dad?" His voice came through loud and irritated with background noise, laughter music. Something that sounded like a hotel lobby bar. "What the hell is going on?" he snapped. "Your mother is upset. Paige says you're freaking out." I stared at the ceiling, blinking hard. I collapsed in training. I'm in the hospital. Neurology ordered an MRI. A pause. A short one. Then he said, "Okay, so you're conscious." "Yes." "So you're fine," he replied, like he was checking off a box. My fingers tightened around the phone. "No, Dad. They found something. A mass. They think it's a meningioma." He exhaled like I was being difficult on purpose. "Taryn, don't start using big medical words like that. You don't even know what it means yet." "I do know what it means," I said. "It means I'm not making this up. Listen," he said, lowering his voice slightly, like he was trying to be reasonable. "We're out of town. We can't just drop everything. Out of town. Like I was calling about a flat tire." "Where are you?" I asked. He hesitated. That hesitation told me everything. "Dad?" I said again, slower. "Where are you?" He sighed and I could hear Paige's voice in the background, close enough to be in the same room, like she was supervising the call. "We're on a trip," he said. "It's not a big deal." "It's not a big deal," I repeated. "I'm in the hospital. Taryn," he said, and his tone sharpened. "You need to stop doing this. Stop making it sound like we're abandoning you." I let out a short, humorless laugh. You are abandoning me. No, we're not, he shot back. You're a grown woman. You're an officer. You're trained. You can handle a hospital visit. A hospital visit? Like I walked in for a vitamin shot. Dad, I said the doctors called you. You didn't answer. Mom didn't answer. And Paige told Lexi not to make it a thing. Paige was protecting your mother, he said quickly. Your mother doesn't need more stress. I swallowed hard. What about me? He didn't answer that. He just said, look, we'll call you later. Don't involve Grandpa. That man worries too much. The way he said Grandpa like Grandpa was a problem made my chest go cold. Why does everyone keep saying that? I asked. Why are you so worried about Grandpa knowing? Because he'll blow things out of proportion, my dad said. I heard Paige laugh in the background. It was small, but it was there, like a little victory laugh. My voice came out quiet. I'm hanging up. Taryn? I ended the call. My hand shook as I set the phone down. Lexi watched me the whole time, her expression tight. Your dad sounds like he's calling from a resort, she said. I think he is, I whispered. Lexi's jaw clenched. Okay, we're not doing this alone. We're not letting them rewrite reality. I nodded, but my eyes stung. I couldn't cry yet. Crying would mean accepting the truth fully, and my brain was still trying to bargain. Maybe they're just overwhelmed. Maybe they don't understand. Maybe when they hear the word surgery. But then my phone lit up again with a notification I didn't ask for. Paige posted a new photo. I didn't want to open it. I opened it anyway. It was a group shot. My mom, my dad Paige, and Paige's fiancé, Ethan, standing in front of a big sign that screamed vacation in bright letters. Everyone looked polished and relaxed. My mom had her arm around Paige like Paige was 12 and needed comfort. My dad was smiling like his life was simple. Paige was centered, of course, like she always was. The caption, family weekend. No drama. My vision blurred for a second, and not from the tumor this time. Lexi took the phone from my hand and looked at it. Her face darkened so fast it was almost impressive. Wow, she said. That's a choice. A choice, I repeated. I thought back to the nurse asking if family was coming, to my mom saying, Paige needs us, to my dad calling my diagnosis big medical words, to Paige texting me like my brain had a PR department. They weren't confused. They were committed. Lexi handed my phone back. Screenshot it. I did. Then I opened my gallery and scrolled through older photos, because something inside me wanted to prove this pattern didn't start today. Like if I could trace it back, it would hurt less. Bad idea. There was Paige at her high school awards night, my parents beaming. Paige at her college graduation, my parents front row. Paige at her engagement party, my parents hosting like it was a royal wedding. Then there was me, a blurry photo from my boot camp graduation, where my mom's face was half cut off, like someone accidentally hit the camera button. A screenshot of a text from my dad, proud of you. Busy today. And now me in a hospital bed with my parents smiling under a vacation sign, like they'd just escaped something exhausting. Lexi sat down, her voice quieter. You know what's wild? What they're acting like you're embarrassing them, she said. But they're the ones who should be embarrassed. I swallowed. My throat felt tight and dry. They always do that. They flip it. Lexi nodded. Control. The word landed heavy. Control wasn't just Paige. It was the whole system. Paige spoke, my parents followed, and I was expected to adapt. A nurse came in with paperwork consent forms for additional imaging instructions for follow-up consults. She pointed to a section that said emergency contact. I stared at it like it was a trap. Lexi leaned in. We can update it. You don't have to wait. I shook my head, not because I didn't want to, but because my brain was still holding on to this tiny, stupid hope that my parents would show up at any moment and prove me wrong, like a magic trick. My phone buzzed again, this time from Paige. Paige, Dad says you're being dramatic. Don't call Grandpa. Don't tell anyone. Keep it private. My hands went cold. Lexi read it over my shoulder and whispered, She's terrified of something. I didn't answer right away. I just stared at Paige's message and felt the first real anger rise clean and sharp, not messy. Because Paige wasn't asking. She was ordering. And that made one thought slide into my mind so clearly, it didn't even feel like a guess anymore. If Paige was this desperate to keep Grandpa out of it, it wasn't because she cared about his blood pressure. It was because Grandpa knew something Paige didn't want exposed. I opened my contacts and scrolled past Mom, past Dad, past Paige, and stopped on one name: Arthur Walsh. I didn't press call yet, but my thumb hovered over it steady for the first time all day. My thumb hit the call button before I could talk myself out of it. The line rang twice, and for a second, I thought maybe I'd waited too long. Maybe he wouldn't pick up. Maybe I'd get another voicemail and add it to the growing pile of disappointment. Then I heard his voice, older, slower than I remembered, but steady. "Taryn," he said. "Is that you?" Something in my chest cracked open so fast, I had to press my free hand to my mouth to keep from making a sound that would scare the nurse. "It's me," I managed. "Grandpa, I'm in the hospital." His tone changed immediately. "Where UCLA Medical Center. I collapsed during training. They ran tests. They found something." There was a brief silence, the kind that isn't empty. It was full of him listening the way my parents never did. "Are you alone?" he asked. I glanced at Lexi, who was sitting with her arms folded like a bouncer guarding my sanity. "I'm not alone," I said. "Lexi's here. She's my corpsman." "Good," Grandpa said, and I could hear him stand up on the other end. "Stay on the line." "Grandpa?" "You don't have to," I said. "Stay on the line." I did. I listened to him moving around, the faint sound of keys, a door opening. Then his voice returned firm. "I'm coming up." My throat tightened. "It's late." "It's a drive. I don't want you on the road, Taryn." He cut in calm but unmovable. "You are not doing this by yourself. Not today." I closed my eyes. That sentence felt like water on a burn. Lexi watched me, and I could tell she already liked him. "I'll be there as fast as I can," Grandpa said. "And I want you to tell the nurse you need someone to sign any paperwork if it comes up. Do you hear me? I hear you." He hung up, and I stared at my phone like it had just become a different object, like it was capable of connecting me to someone who actually showed up. Lexi exhaled. That sounded like a real adult. I gave a weak smile. "He's the only one." Lexi didn't say I'm sorry. She didn't do the pity voice. She just nodded like she understood exactly what kind of family math I was working with. An hour later, my phone buzzed again. This time it was my mom. I didn't answer. 10 minutes after that, my dad. I didn't answer. Then Paige. Lexi watched the screen light up and said, "Nope." I let it ring. My body finally calmed enough that the headache turned into a steady ache instead of a spike. A nurse came in and adjusted my IV, asked my pain level, asked if I needed anything. I almost said a new family. Instead, I asked for water. Around midnight, the curtain rustled, and I heard a familiar voice, breathless and angry, in the way only someone who cares gets angry. "Where is she?" Lexi stood up. "Over here." Grandpa Arthur stepped into the bay. He looked thinner than the last time I saw him, hair completely white now, but his eyes were still sharp. The kind of eyes that don't let people lie in front of them for long. He came straight to my bedside and took my hand like he was grounding me to the earth. "There you are," he said quietly. "My girl." I swallowed hard. "I didn't want to bother you." He stared at me for a long second, and his face tightened. "You didn't bother me. You bothered the wrong people." Lexi stepped back a little, giving us space, but she stayed close enough to jump in if she needed to. Grandpa looked at the IV, the hospital bracelet, the paperwork on the tray table. His jaw clenched tighter with each detail. "Where are your parents?" he asked, voice low. I didn't answer. I didn't have to. He already knew. "I called them," I admitted. "The doctors called them. They didn't come." His eyes flashed. "And Paige?" I hesitated. "She told them not to. She said I was being dramatic." Grandpa let out a slow breath through his nose. It wasn't a sigh. It was the sound of someone putting a lid on fury. He turned to Lexi. "Thank you for staying with her." Lexi nodded. "Of course, sir." Grandpa looked back at me. "Tell me what the doctor said." So I did. I told him the symptoms. The MERI. Dr. Chen. The word meningioma. The fact that it was likely benign but in a sensitive spot. The plan for specialist consult and possible intervention soon. I kept it simple. Facts. I didn't give him the emotional version because I didn't want to scare him. Grandpa listened without interrupting, and when I finished, he squeezed my hand. "We'll handle it," he said. The simplicity of that made my eyes sting. Then he said something that knocked the air out of me. And the tuition, he added almost casually. "What about that?" I blinked. "What about my tuition?" Grandpa frowned. "You told me you've been working nonstop. You mentioned loans." "Yeah," I said slowly. "I had to. I didn't have a choice." Grandpa's face went still. "That doesn't make any sense." My stomach dropped. "Why?" He leaned forward, voice quiet. "Because I set up support for you. For both of you." I stared at him. "Support," he nodded once. "Years ago, I created a fund. Not a college-only plan, a family support account. It was meant to be split evenly between you and Paige when you hit major milestones, education, housing emergencies. 50-50, no games." My throat went dry. I don't understand." Grandpa kept his eyes on mine. "I'm the account holder. I've always been the account holder. But I gave your parents access because I trusted them. I thought they'd be fair. I thought they'd do the job parents are supposed to do." Lexi's head tilted slightly, like she was watching a crime documentary come to life. I felt like my brain was trying to reboot. "Are you saying there was money? For me?" "Yes," Grandpa said. "Enough that you should not have had to run yourself into the ground." My pulse started racing again. I never saw any of it. He didn't blink. "That's what I'm hearing." I shook my head slowly, like that would make the words rearrange themselves into something less brutal. "I paid my tuition. I took out loans, I worked. I've been freelancing." Grandpa's grip tightened. "How much did you pay?" I swallowed. "A lot." He sat back, and for the first time since he walked in, he looked truly shocked. "My God," he said quietly, "so they didn't tell you." Lexi's voice was careful. "Sir, when was the last time you checked the account activity?" Grandpa looked at her like he appreciated the question. "I've checked the balance periodically. I saw withdrawals, but your parents always said it was temporary use, family expenses, a bridge. They said they'd settle it. And I believed them because I didn't want to believe the alternative. The alternative hung in the air between us." My fingers went numb. "Grandpa?" "What kind of withdrawals?" Grandpa's face tightened again, this time, with something sharper than anger disgust. "Large ones. Not consistent with family expenses, unless your family expenses include treating your oldest like a VIP. Lexi muttered. "Oh, wow." I felt like I couldn't breathe. "Paige's trip." Grandpa didn't answer, but his silence was confirmation. I stared at the tray table, at the MRI printout, at the estimate paperwork, at my own hands shaking. 4 years of exhaustion, 4 years of shifts, 4 years of headaches I blamed on stress. All while there was supposed to be support sitting behind a locked door I didn't even know existed. And my parents held the key. Grandpa stood up so fast the chair scraped the floor. "Give me your father's number." I hesitated. "Grandpa now." I gave it to him. He dialed right in front of me. No pacing, no speeches, just action. The line rang. Once, twice. Then my dad answered, and I could tell immediately from his tone that he was annoyed to be interrupted. "Hello?" Grandpa's voice came out like a hammer. "Grant, where's my granddaughter's money?" Silence. Then my dad tried to laugh. "Dad, what are you talking about?" "I'm talking about the fund I created to be split evenly between Taryn and Paige," Grandpa said, each word sharp. "I'm talking about the withdrawals. I'm talking about why Taryn is lying in a hospital bed with an MRI result while you're on a trip you didn't even have the decency to hide." My dad's voice got defensive fast. "We didn't steal anything. We borrowed. We were going to replace it." Grandpa didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. Borrowing requires permission. "Did you ask Taryn?" My dad stalled. She's always been independent." Grandpa's eyes flashed as he looked at me. Independent is not a license to rob her. I heard my mom's voice in the background, breathy and tense. Arthur, please, not right now. You're going to make this worse. Grandpa's jaw tightened. Worse for who? For the family image Paige is so desperate to protect. My phone buzzed on the tray table, lighting up through Do Not Disturb with Paige's name again, like she could sense the ground shifting under her. Grandpa's voice stayed flat, deadly calm. I want the bank statements. Tonight. I want to know exactly what you took, where it went, and why you thought you could hide it from me and from Taryn. My dad snapped. You're overreacting. Grandpa stared down at me, his hand still gripping mine, and then he spoke into the phone like he was cutting a rope. I'm not overreacting, he said. I'm correcting a mistake, and the first correction is that you no longer have access. He ended the call. The room went silent, except for the monitor and Lexi's slow inhale. Grandpa looked at me, eyes steady, and said, You're going to get the care you need. And nobody is going to teach you to feel guilty for surviving. Grandpa didn't sit back down. He stayed standing like the chair was beneath him now. Lexi picked up my phone and held it out. Sir Paige is calling again. Grandpa glanced at the screen, like it was a fly buzzing near his ear. Let it ring. It rang. It stopped. It rang again. My stomach twisted, not because I was scared of Paige, but because I knew exactly what she was trying to do. She wanted to get in front of the story. She wanted to manage Grandpa the way she managed my parents. Grandpa turned to me. Do you want to answer her? I stared at the ceiling for a second, then shook my head. Not right now, good, Grandpa said. Then we do it my way. He pulled his own phone out, older model, no fancy case, the kind of phone used for calls, not attention, and opened his banking app like he'd done it 1,000 times. Lexi leaned forward. You can see the transactions now. Grandpa nodded. I can see enough. Full statements take a minute, but I can see the pattern. He scrolled and his face changed with every swipe. Not surprised, something worse. Like he was watching someone break into his house while smiling. Look at this, he said, turning the screen slightly toward Lexi. Large withdrawal, then another, then another. Lexi's eyebrows pulled together. These are recent. Grandpa nodded. And these line up with what? My brain was still lagging, but I forced it to work. Paige's engagement, I said quietly. The trip, the deposits. Grandpa looked at me. Exactly. The nurse came in with a fresh bag for my IV, took one look at Grandpa's face, and decided to keep the visit short. Everything okay? She asked cautiously. Grandpa's smile was polite but empty. We're fine. Thank you. As soon as she stepped out, Grandpa spoke again. They told me it was temporary. Family expenses, emergencies. Lexi snorted. Yeah. Emergency vacation. Grandpa didn't smile. He kept scrolling. Then he paused like he'd hit the part that made his blood pressure spike. Here, he said, this is the one that tells me it wasn't just sloppy. He showed Lexi a line item, and Lexi's eyes narrowed. That's a vendor, Lexi said. Not a grocery store. Grandpa nodded. A wedding services vendor. And this one is a travel agency. And this is a deposit. I felt my throat tighten. So it really was for Paige. Grandpa didn't say it like a question. It was for Paige. For a moment, I couldn't move. I just stared at the blanket over my legs, because if I looked at Grandpa's face, I'd see how furious he was. And I didn't want to add the guilt of I caused Grandpa stress on top of everything else. Then my phone buzzed again. Texts pouring in. Now? Not calls. Dad. What did you tell Grandpa, Mom? Why are you doing this to us, Paige? Stop. Now. Lexi read them over my shoulder and let out a low whistle. They didn't call because you collapsed. They call because the money got mentioned. Grandpa's jaw clenched. Exactly. He tapped on his screen again, then looked at me. Taryn, did you ever receive anything from this fund? No, I said. I didn't even know it existed. Did you ever sign anything he asked? Any consent? Any agreement to allow them to manage it on your behalf? No. Lexi nodded like she was building the legal outline in her head. So they had access because you gave it to them, not because she gave it to them. Grandpa's eyes were steady. I gave them access. I gave them trust. The word trust landed heavy. Grandpa sat down finally, but only because he needed both hands free. He opened his email and started drafting a message to the bank request for full statements, request for records of any changes to paperless settings, addresses, authorized devices. Lexi's voice was quiet. Paperless settings matter. Grandpa looked up. That's the part I don't understand. I expected the withdrawals. I didn't expect the hiding. Lexi nodded slowly. If they flipped the account to paperless and routed notices to their address, you wouldn't get mailed alerts. And Taryn wouldn't either, because she's not the account holder. My stomach turned. They could do that if they had login access. Lexi said, yeah. Grandpa's face darkened. They did. I felt heat behind my eyes, but I refused to cry. Crying felt like giving them a win, and I was done giving them anything. Lexi leaned closer to me. Ma'am, can I be blunt? Please, I said. This is a financial abuse situation, she said. And your sister is helping them justify it. Grandpa nodded once. Your sister isn't just benefiting, she's directing. Like the universe wanted to confirm it, Paige's name flashed again, video call this time. Grandpa looked at me. Permission to answer, I hesitated. I didn't want her voice in my ears. But part of me wanted to watch her try to see if she would lie with the same confidence she always had. I nodded once. Answer it. Grandpa hit accept. Paige's face filled the screen, and she was already in performance mode. Eyes wide, mouth soft, voice sugary. Grandpa. Oh my God, she said. What is going on? Why are you yelling at Mom and Dad? Grandpa didn't flinch. Because your sister is in the hospital. Paige's fake concern clicked on. I know, and I feel terrible. But she's okay, right? She's awake. The doctor said it's not serious. My jaw clenched so hard it hurt. Grandpa's voice stayed calm. Neurology says it is serious. Paige's expression flickered just for a beat, then returned to sweet. Well, you know how Taryn is. She gets anxious. She spirals. She hears one word and, stop, Grandpa said flat. Paige blinked. Excuse me, stop labeling your sister, Grandpa said. And stop pretending you don't know what I'm asking. Paige's smile tightened. I don't know what you mean. Grandpa leaned slightly toward the camera. The fund! Paige's eyes widened. What fund, Grandpa? Didn't raise his voice. The account I created to be split evenly between you and Taryn. Paige's mouth opened, then closed. Then opened again, like she was searching for the correct lie. I don't know what you're talking about, she said finally. Lexi let out a soft, unbelieving laugh. Grandpa continued. I pulled the transaction history. I see wedding vendors. I see travel agencies. I see deposits. I see it being used for you. Paige's tone sharpened. That's not fair. Grandpa's eyebrows lifted. Not fair. That's your argument. Paige's face hardened, the mask slipping. Mom and Dad handled the money. Not me. Grandpa nodded once. Good. So you have no problem with them sending me full statements and proving it. Paige's jaw tightened. Why are you doing this? You're stressing everyone out. Grandpa's eyes didn't move. Your sister collapsed in training. Your parents didn't come. You posted no drama like her life was an inconvenience. Paige snapped because she makes everything dramatic. The words burst out before she could stop them. The silence that followed was so clean, it felt like someone turned off the air. I watched Paige realize what she'd said, and for a second, she looked almost scared. Not for me, for herself. Grandpa spoke, voice quiet but sharp. Say that again. Paige recovered fast. I didn't mean... No, Grandpa cut in. You meant it. You've meant it for years. Paige's eyes darted, then narrowed. Grandpa, you're old. You don't understand how Taryn has been acting. She's under pressure. She's unstable sometimes. Lexi's head snapped up. There it is again. I felt my pulse spike. Grandpa didn't blink. Do you hear yourself? Paige leaned closer to her camera voice, dropping into a threat disguised as advice. If you make a big deal out of this, it's going to hurt her career. People will talk. The Navy doesn't play with that. You're going to ruin her life trying to help. I stared at her shocked. She was saying it like she cared, but the truth was clear. She wasn't protecting me. She was protecting the story she'd built around me. Grandpa's face went still. You don't get to threaten your sister. I'm not threatening her, Paige said quickly. I'm trying to stop her from making bad choices, and you're letting her manipulate you. Grandpa's voice dropped lower. Manipulate me? Paige nodded like she was certain. Yes, she wants attention. She wants to play victim. She wants you to side with her, so you'll punish Mom and Dad. Lexi muttered, This is unreal. Grandpa looked at me for a second, then back to Paige. The only manipulation I see is you trying to make a hospital stay into a character flaw. Paige's face flushed. I'm done with this. If you freeze anything or cut off Mom and Dad, you're punishing all of us, not just them. There are consequences. Grandpa didn't flinch. You're right. There are consequences. Paige stared at him. What does that mean? Grandpa's voice was steady. It means your parents' access ends today, and any future support will go directly where it belongs. Paige's eyes widened. You can't do that! Grandpa's mouth barely moved. I already can! Paige's breathing changed. The hotel noise behind her suddenly felt louder, like the world was moving while she tried to stop it. You're going to regret this, she hissed. Grandpa ended the call. Lexi exhaled. Well, that was a lot. Grandpa didn't respond. He was already tapping on his phone, opening settings, making changes with the focus of someone who'd waited too long to correct a mistake. I'm removing their access, he said calmly. Right now. My phone lit up again with more texts, a storm of blame. Mom? How could you do this to your family? Dad, fix this. Now, Paige. If you embarrass us, you're dead to me. I stared at the screen and felt strangely clear, like my body had finally chosen a lane. Lexi leaned close and whispered, Save every single one. Grandpa's phone chimed softly, confirmation messages from the bank. He looked at me, eyes steady. It's done. And as if on cue, my phone started ringing again, back to back, like the family suddenly remembered I existed the moment the money stopped moving. I turned my phone over and watched it vibrate across the tray table, like it was trying to crawl away from my life. Dad? Mom? Paige? Dad again. Paige again. Lexi reached out and slid the phone closer to me, then calmly flipped it face down. You don't owe them a response right now. Grandpa Arthur didn't look even slightly guilty. He looked focused, like he'd finally gotten his hands on a steering wheel after years in the passenger seat. They're going to panic, he said, more like a prediction than a comment. He wasn't wrong. My phone buzzed with texts between the calls. Dad? The bank is declining. What did you do? Mom? Arthur is being unreasonable. Fix this. Paige, pick up. Oh. Lexi glanced at the screen and shook her head. Funny how they found service the second the money got cut off. Grandpa's voice was calm. That tells you what mattered. It should have made me cry. Instead, I felt numb in a clean, sharp way, like my feelings had left the building and replaced themselves with a checklist. Don't engage, save proof, protect access, update contacts. Lexi leaned closer. Ma'am, I'm going to say this like you're one of my junior sailors. Okay, you need to update your emergency contact today, she said. Not later, not when you feel better. Today. I swallowed. I know. Grandpa nodded. I'll sign anything you need, and I'll speak to whoever I have to speak to. The nurse came in to check on me, and immediately noticed the chaos on the tray table, my phone lighting up, the missed call count climbing. Everything okay? She asked, cautious. Lexi answered for me, polite but firm. Family drama? We're handling it. The nurse gave a sympathetic half smile, like she'd seen this movie before, and asked if I needed anything. I asked for a pen. She handed me one, and I sat there in a hospital bed with an IV in my arm and started doing paperwork like it was my job, because it basically was. I opened the hospital's patient portal on my phone and pulled up the section for emergency contact information. My parents' names stared back at me, neat and official, like a joke nobody bothered to explain. My hand hesitated. It felt like betrayal, even though they'd already betrayed me. That's how deep the conditioning went. I'd been trained to feel guilty for protecting myself. Lexi noticed the hesitation and said quietly, Taryn, they didn't come, And your sister called you unstable in the same breath as don't tell people. That's not love. That's control. Grandpa's voice was softer. You don't have to keep giving them power out of habit. I exhaled and my finger moved. I removed my mom. I removed my dad. I added Grandpa Arthur first. Then I hesitated again before adding Lexi, because it felt weird listing a corpsman as emergency contact, but Lexi had already proven she'd do the job, and right now, that mattered more than appearances. Lexi raised an eyebrow. You sure I'm sure? I said and clicked save. The screen confirmed the update. A tiny digital change, but it felt like moving a mountain. My phone rang again immediately, like my family somehow sensed I'd cut one more thread. Paige this time. Grandpa leaned forward. Do you want me to answer? Lexi shook her head before I could speak. No. Let her keep spinning. We want her on record. I stared at the screen and let it ring out. A voicemail notification popped up. Paige again. This time I played it because I wanted to hear how she'd twist reality when she couldn't control the conversation live. Her voice came through sweet at first. Hey, Taryn. It's Paige. Look, I know you're emotional right now. Emotional? I almost laughed. Then her tone shifted. You need to fix what you did. Mom and Dad can't pay for the hotel. The cards aren't working. We're stuck. There it was. Not, are you okay? Not what did the doctor say? Just stuck. Paige continued, voice tightening. And Grandpa is old. You shouldn't be stressing him out. This is not the time to make some big point. You always do this. You always make it about you. I paused, the voicemail stared at the wall, then hit play again because I wanted the whole thing documented. Paige finished with, call me back. Now. And don't involve anyone else. Handle it like an adult. I ended the voicemail and looked at Lexi. Handle it like an adult. Lexi's face twisted. You know what's adult showing up. Taking responsibility. Not posting no drama while someone's getting MRI results. Grandpa nodded. Save that voicemail. Lexi already had her phone out. I'm forwarding it. And screenshotting. And backing it up. My phone lit up with another message from my dad. Dad? We can't even pay for food. Your mother is embarrassed. Do you want us stranded? I stared at the text and felt something in me snap into clarity. They weren't calling because they loved me. They were calling because they were inconvenienced. The nurse returned with discharge instructions for the night, how they were keeping me for observation, how neurology would follow up, how I should rest. No driving, no strenuous activity. Report symptoms immediately. Rest. No strenuous activity. As if my family wasn't currently doing emotional CrossFit on my chest. Lexi read the instructions over my shoulder, then said, You're not going to answer them tonight. Grandpa's voice was calm, almost gentle. Let them sit in the consequences. They've never sat in yours. 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 They've never sat in yours.